Hi, welcome to Black Cat Kitchen. Today we're making Jamie Oliver's sausage and mash pie from his new cookbook, 7 Ways, with a few Black Cat Kitchen twists. We're going to be adding a little bit of bacon, because everybody loves bacon, and a few other little tips and tricks that I'll give you along the way. This is a really easy recipe to pull together any night of the week, and it tastes delicious. It's even great for leftovers the next day. So let's get started. Here are the ingredients you'll need for this recipe. Feel free to pause. I'll list the ingredients in the description below. We'll start with 1.2 kilograms of potatoes, about 10 or so, and around that size. We'll peel and chop the potatoes and put them in salted water to boil. The mash in this recipe actually makes the crust, so there's no pastry at all. So whenever I'm making mashed potatoes, I like to half the larger potatoes like this and cut them into slices rather than doing them in cubes. And make sure you use cold water when you're making mashed potatoes because it helps the potatoes to cook a lot more evenly. Let's peel and chop our apples. 2 medium eating apples, although these ones are kind of small, so I went for 3. I find the easiest way to chop an apple into chunks is just going down the sides, leaving that core intact. These will cook down a bit, so you can leave them a little bit chunky. They don't have to be too fine. Now, Jamie's recipe calls for leeks, but onions are a great alternative, although leeks don't make you cry like onions do. So I just chop the bacon into bite-sized pieces. Have a look at your potatoes and make sure that your knife goes in really easily. If they break up like that, you know they're ready. Let's get them drained. We're going to season the potatoes with salt and pepper and add 2 tablespoons of the flour. Mash it all together so it gets into that nice sort of pastry-like consistency. Generous seasoning of salt and pepper. All right, let's mash it up. It will feel very stiff because of the flour in here. But don't worry, it comes together. Get your sausages into a casserole dish or a deep frying pan and just start to brown them off. If you're using veggie sausages here, you'll want to use a little bit of oil. Just turn them over and get them nice and caramelized on all sides. That's a hot pot. Take a few sprigs of thyme and just sprinkle them into your onion and apple mix. We're not looking to cook the sausages here, just get them a little bit caramelized on the edges. Get those apples and onions in there with that little bit of thyme. Just give them a little bit of stir. Now that this has picked up some color, let's add some bacon. Just break it up and start to get some color on it because the bacon will cook more thoroughly in the oven. Once it's started to get a little bit brown and all of your apples have some little crusty bits on them, add a splash of water and cover it for 20 minutes to cook. Every now and again, give it a little stir. Just make sure it's not too dry. You don't want it burning in there. And if you need to add a tiny little bit more water at this point, you can, but the apples will slowly start to cook down. Let's get our baking dish all prepped so when that filling is ready, we can pop it in the oven. We're going to drizzle some olive oil on the bottom and just give it a good rub so that you're lining the sides. Take 2/3 of your potato mix and put it into your tray. You're going to press it down so that it forms your crust. Now for the interesting bit, making a pie crust out of mashed potatoes for the top of your pie. You want to take some grease-proof paper, larger than the size of your dish, and drizzle it with some olive oil. Give that a good rub around. You don't want that mashed potato sticking to the grease-proof paper. And get the rest of that mash onto the paper. Now just spread it out as thin as you can. You can see why we needed so many potatoes. A good way to tell if your crust is big enough is just to grab your pie tin, pop it on top, and make sure that it fits nicely around. Ready to go. Now let's chop these sausages. We're going to chop them into 1 centimeter pieces. Don't worry if they're not cooked through, they definitely will cook in the oven. As per Jamie's instructions, I've held one back and I'm just going to cut this into 6 pieces. These will garnish the top of your pie. Make sure you set those 6 pieces of sausage to one side and don't mix them in. Now that most of that water has cooked off and everything's really softened and gotten lovely and gotten to know each other in the pot there, we're going to make a nice little gravy type sauce. So we're going to add some English mustard, 3 teaspoons, and don't worry, it doesn't make it spicy, it just adds a really nice flavor. And to that, 2 tablespoons of plain flour. Again, all-purpose will work in this recipe. Give that a stir until the flour is well incorporated and all of the appley, oniony, bacony bits are covered. That mustard smells amazing when it hits the heat. It's so delicious. Once that's all mixed in, you're going to add your 600 milliliters of milk. Slowly. If you were to add the milk all at once, it might lump up, and the last thing you want is a lumpy sauce. So add it in slow increments. Let's add those sausages, not the ones that we've reserved, into the pot and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. Make sure you get all those nice juices that came off the sausages as well. There's lots of flavor in there. And just give that some time to mingle. Preheat your oven to 200 degrees centigrade or 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Pour your sausage mix into the mashed potato. Spread it out evenly. And now let's add our lid. Like I said, this is the tricky part. So we're going to gently lift our paper up and over. And just press down on the edges so that we can peel that paper away. This is why we put so much oil on the paper earlier. It'd be really horrible if this potato stuck to the paper now. Just give it a good seal around the edges, and then we'll go in with our fork to make it pretty. Dip your fork in flour and just press around the edges so you've got those nice little fork lines. You might want to continue flouring it. As you can see, it is a little bit sticky. Go all the way around the pie until you're finished crimping. Time for that last bit of sausage. We're just going to pop them into the potato like this, just so they look pretty. As a side, we're going to have some mustardy greens and peas. I'm using young spring greens. You can use any hardy green vegetable, be it kale, chard, cabbage, whatever you like. I've already prepared a pot of boiling salted water. So let's chop those woody ends off, and we'll get these just cut into nice and manageable bite-sized pieces. Get them into a colander, give them a good wash, and then we'll get them into the water. To the greens, I've added 200 grams of frozen peas as well. These only need about 5 minutes to cook down, and then we'll strain them off. Once you've got that really rich, vibrant green, that's when you know you're good to strain it off. So back into that same pot, we're going to add 25 grams of butter, 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard, and 1 tablespoon of whole grain mustard. Let that get mixed up all together, and we're going to add the greens right back to this. Get them nicely coated, give it a good stir, and you're ready to serve. With 5 minutes left on the clock, we're going to sprinkle the thyme sprigs on top of the pie. Look at that, complete with cat paws. Let's have a taste. The sausage is so nice with that creamy sauce, and the mashed potato has just a little bit of crispiness on the edge. Really, really good. And the greens complement it so perfectly. A really nice balance of vegetables, carbs, and protein. That's a wrap on Jamie Oliver's sausage and mashed pie. Make sure you like and follow for more baking, cooking, and cuts. See you soon.